Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Better You podcast. Today's episode is going to be something different. If anyone has followed me on my journey in this podcast, is that I've always wanted to start my own education NGO in the long run to help young girls have access to education. So this episode is about learning the inside work of education NGOs and to spread awareness and just empowering youth. My guest today, he is Bernard Au. We actually met at an ASEAN networking event in London, and I'm really excited to have him today here to share his own experience in the education NGO field himself. Welcome, Bernard, to my channel. Maybe you can start off by introducing yourself, your background.
Yeah. Thank you. So, thank you so much for having me here. And like you said, right, I think first of all, I just want to say how interesting London is because I feel like you can just meet someone and then now you're sort of doing a podcast together, and even just having coffee chats with people, right? That's something that I don't think I'm not very used to in Malaysia. If like I only meet this person once and we're gonna go for a chat immediately, it's gonna be a bit sudden. But here it seems to be it's something that I learned to embrace here, and that's fantastic. Just a bit about me. My name is Bernard, and I have spent 8 years of my past sort of career in education nonprofit scene. I started as a educator or a teacher in Teach from Malaysia when I taught in a high school for 2 years in Johor Bahru. So I think noticing the challenges that urban poor youth face, I think that's what really drove me to continue staying in education. So then after that, I spent almost 6 years in another nonprofit called Pemimpin, where we train teachers and school leaders because we believe that they have the power to influence the whole school culture. So yeah, that's what I do. And also a bit of maybe my past life before all this education things come about. I was actually a mass comm graduate. I was a wedding videographer for a little bit before I pivoted into education. So yeah.
Let's jump into the interesting questions that I have. I wanted to start off something a bit personal.
Yeah.
What inspired you to get involved in the Malaysian education space?
I feel like as a mass comm graduate, like I part of my work in university back then is to talk about social issues or talk about this current affairs issues on campus, discuss with people, write about it. We have like a campus newspaper, so we talk about issues there as well. Then I realized like as I dive into this field, there's so many people talking about the issues, complaining about it, but actually very little people that actually get their hands dirty and solve the issue, I decided to just really go to the ground and understand the challenges. And I feel like working with Malaysian schools, especially government schools, there are a lot of challenges, but there are also a lot of very bright people inside. You just have to learn and find ways to support them. And if we can influence maybe just 10% or 20% of teachers to do better and support them, right? I feel like there's like a ripple effect, right? If you can change like a small group of people, you can continually sustain the good work that they do. Eventually, they'll influence others and hopefully change the whole culture as well.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Mm.
Actually, what about you? Why did you want to go into this space, like this education nonprofit space? You said you always wanted to do it, but why did you want to?
I think the turning
Yeah.
point is when, before I came to the UK, I was applying to scholarships, right?
Yeah.
And then I firsthand saw how difficult it is, right? Because you're competing among many bright students. It made me recognize that, wow, there's so many people who don't have that finance. Like, they can't chase their dreams. And I think that's something that I want to give back one day. Mm.
That's perfect. Yeah, no, that's very nice of you. And I honestly think whoever, like all the Malaysians who are overseas, right, we have honestly a lot to give.
And I think it's also people like us, right, and the Malaysians overseas, we can give back is the knowledge also. I think right now the skills
Yes.
that we learn
Yes.
overseas,
Yeah.
and give back to our home country. I think that's the most
Exactly.
powerful tool. Yeah.
And I think no matter where I go, I feel like I've always had Malaysia in my heart. Whenever I'm here, I keep on the news that I'm reading, right? Sure, I'm reading London news, but I'm reading more about Malaysian news as well as I'm spending time here.
Mm.
Yeah.
What differences do you see between urban and rural access to quality education in Malaysia?
For context, I grew up in KL. I went to like government school, SGKC, SMK, and then tertiary also in Klang Valley. And then, but in my recent job, the last job before I come to study here in the UK, we actually work with orang asli schools in Perak. So and then they have some schools that are pedalaman. They have pedalaman 1, 2, 3, and some the pedalaman 3 schools, right? There are 3 types of rural schools. They call P1, 2, 3, and P1 I think is just a bit further. P2 is you don't have things like internet, maybe limited electricity, water. P3 is there's just no road access. You have to take like maybe like boat to the school. So those like and there are just so many differences in access, right? I've been to P3 schools. They have to, let's just say, if they want to come out to the city, it takes like 2 hours of boat and sort of 4x4 driving, right? And just imagine that just to get opportunities to this school, for them to join, let's just say, a competition, for them to meet outside people, for them to be exposed to the working world out there, it's just so difficult, very, very distant. So I think the sheer distance alone is one. And then number two, there's also like people that are in, so let's just say, these rural areas. Sometimes the orang asli kids also, this is very orang asli centric because that's mostly the experience that I have, right? They prefer their kids to stay in there and be with the family. So they don't really want their kids to go out. I mean, some do, but some prefer them to just stay on with the family. That's one huge difference. And I feel like the second thing is also it's very difficult to attract people, talented people, to stay in a rural area for a very long time. Because teachers also, right? We are humans and we want to be close to our families. You don't want to stay too far off, right? If anything happens to our family, we can come back home easily and attend to them. But if you're living in these rural schools, it's very difficult. Most of the teachers that work with the P3 schools, they have to stay in the school. So like if there's any emergency, it's very tough to come out. And obviously that makes a lot of teachers like, who are working there, even though they like the work, they somehow dream of moving out of the school eventually. So that is very difficult to attract and retain good talent inside. That's from a sort of from the teacher training perspective. Yeah. So I just sort of pause there for now. These are the two main things I noticed. Mm.
This very interesting. Firstly, it pains my heart. That's why I wanted to do this podcast also. It's I'm learning, but also spreading awareness. People won't know all about this unless you hear it from people, right? So
Yeah.
the P3 thing really pains my heart because I'm sure there's no access because you're so inside, like internet access, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense because, if you are bringing teachers from the city, that is their daily life. So having them to shift that mindset is difficult.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It's good to know like there's such issue, and that's also why I want to help those people because we only see what we see in the city. We don't know like there's so many people out there that
Yeah.
are living like this. Yeah.
Just to highlight, because of the challenges, right? I really, really respect the teachers who have spent years and years inside there trying to sort of provide the best education experience. I also empathize with them a lot, and honestly, if there's anything that we can do to support them more, they will definitely welcome it. And just to give an example of how difficult it is to teach in a rural school, right? Okay, let's put aside the uncomfortableness going in, right? The boat rides, the riding in the 4x4 to go in, and then not very like luxurious or very comfortable living conditions. And then you go to teaching, right? The students also, because of what they are exposed to, it's quite limited. They don't really see the point of doing very well in studies. Okay. So when you go in and teach them, for example, they're teaching primary 1 to 6 about English, right? They don't even understand sometimes the need of learning, like because they didn't really need English to survive in there, right? Like, most of them speak their own mother tongue, and then maybe the second language is Malay, and English is the third language. Whereas we would know the value of English. And then there's also the issue of primary 1 to 6. Preschool is not mandatory in Malaysia currently, right? So only primary one is. And when it's not mandatory, there's also no preschool in the area. So a lot of kids going to school for the first time at 7 years old, you're technically not teaching them English, you're teaching them how to hold a pencil, just to write ABC. So you're starting a bit late. That's why the challenges of being a school, no matter which level you're at, like primary or secondary, is just very different from what teaching the urban schools. There's just so many different challenges. And sometimes like KL, I think some teachers and the students, the relationship is very transactional. But I think in rural areas, you really have to build the bond. You have to make them trust you, make them like you, so that they'll keep on coming back. But that also requires a teacher who is very willing to invest the energy to creating like very good lessons and so a lot of things. Some teachers also, every year when the school starts, they have to go on a boat, get these students to come on the boat and come to the school and stay to the school as they're learning throughout the few months, and then break, they'll send them back in. So like the responsibility is 2 to 3 times more than what a typical government school teacher in KL would be. Yeah. I mean, the students are lesser for sure, like a class is maybe smaller, but the intensity of the work, the depth of the work is so different.
And also just the energy, right?
Yes.
Waking up, you're human also, right?
Yeah.
Every day you do this, right? Even though lesser students, but the energy that you need to pour into,
Yeah.
I think it's 10 times or even 100 times. I just want to say something to the teachers if they ever listen to this podcast and to say what an amazing soul you all are. Is just I have so much respect after you sharing all this, because I always feel like kids look up to teachers. Even me myself, I still keep in touch with my primary school teachers. When I go back to Malaysia, I make the effort to meet them, because I'm someone, I remember my roots. And the reason also is because they play such an important role to me. Because aside from my parents, my grandparents, I think the teacher is the closest, having that bond. And it goes back to what you say, right? It's building that trust. I think for the Orang Asli people, they are very community focused. So it makes a lot of sense that, to be able to, for them to trust the teachers and let them having that bond. Yeah.
The note of appreciating teachers, right? That's why sometimes it hurts me a bit when, let's just say in social media, you see people bashing teachers a lot. I also acknowledge that, okay, maybe not all teachers are fantastic, but there are some that are very, very good, and there are some that really put in a lot of heart in the work that they do. Day in, day out. A bit of appreciation goes a long way. Like, I think the issue is whenever I talk to people about the education system, right? Try not to treat like teachers as the target and you sort of attack them. But because I think they are working in a system that is very burdened and tired. Like in a machine that's very difficult to run or takes a lot of energy to run. So I think the issue is really the system and how do we make sure teachers are supported, not given more burden. That will really help to propel the work forward.
I agree. I feel like it's the support. Because at the end of the day, if you ask me to be a teacher also, right, it's not an easy job. It's really good to have, this awareness around the new generation. How can we, going forward, not change the system, but maybe more open-minded in terms of things and have a more, more discussions around how can we support both parties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always a bigger picture to things, and it's easier said than done, definitely. But I feel like appreciation goes a long way, because we all like to hear that, we are appreciated. Like, who doesn't like it?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the same goes to a teacher who's also a human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think are the most persistent barriers to higher education for girls in undeserved Malaysian communities? This is something I'm really interested to know.
Before that, maybe ask you that. What do you think?
I think maybe because I grew up in an Asian culture. So, I mean, from what I see, it's also conversations with my friends. So I think I'm quite lucky in my household that I am given the same opportunity as I am with my brother.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
when I hear, other people around me, it's, let's say the family is not as well off, then they will focus more on male, unfortunately. So I don't want to put any gender blames on this. I feel it's definitely never the son or the daughter's fault, but it's just it comes with the circumstances. So I do understand where the family is coming from, but that's how I view it. That's probably the barrier for girls is when finance or other things are in the way. Naturally, girls are more household focused than having the faith that they can also succeed outside in the workforce.
I definitely agree. Recently, my dissertation is on starting a social enterprise that focuses on helping unemployed youth. So I think it's all research, right? And then I've read a lot about how education is linked to unemployment. And based on the sort of youth unemployment statistics in Malaysia, like you said, in the rural areas, number one, poor communities may have more issues accessing unemployment. the reason why they are unemployed is because I think some girls, especially in the Kelantan Terengganu region, they're expected to just stay at home, expected to get married, and hence the parents actually don't want them to work. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's very related to the education thing as well. Like the expectation for them to leave the household or go have very established jobs is all very high. So although they do better in education, right? That's not what the parents' goals for them are. Like the goal is for them to be, ending up in the household instead. With that, one barrier is definitely family and culture. So like the expectations on women in different parts of Malaysia could be different. I think the more open-minded families, like maybe like the ones that you and I are in, we hope that no matter which gender you are, you succeed, in career-wise, you get to do whatever you want. But that's not the case for some other families, unfortunately. Family influence is one. And then number two, you also mentioned the low-income communities that had it more difficult, right? I also think that is true because when they have less exposure to the world out there, when they have less imagination of what they can be, they just think that, oh, maybe I'll just grow up to be just like my mother, which is nothing wrong if that's all that's it, what if that's what they really want to do. But if they're limited by that and that's the only option, I feel that education system didn't manage to bring them to the fullest potential.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think that's the two angles.
To summarize like our discussion on this question,
Yeah.
I feel like overall, right, what I can draw is like the environment. Because like let's say the girls, right, is you look up to your mother, but that's the only
Yeah.
woman figure in your house, and that's how you see growing up. It also ties back to what you say about it forms the expectation on that girl, like how she
Yeah.
perceives a woman should be. And maybe that's why it kind of limits her to, hey, should I even chase my dream? Or it doesn't seem like I have that opportunity. So that's definitely a barrier. Mm.
If I can add a last bit of because of the environment, when people talk about there's a glass ceiling for women, I think a lot of people don't acknowledge it, but I think it's really there because there's just less representation of women succeeding, let's just say in whatever corporates or like, board members and stuff like that. When there's very little representation, it's very difficult to imagine that you can do it too. So I think for people that dismiss this as there's no glass ceiling, I actually disagree. Yes, there are a lot of women that are succeeding right now, but there are some, because of their circumstances, they have limited exposure and they don't really know how to get out of the environment. The glass ceiling definitely is there and definitely limits the people as well.
Interesting how your dissertation is actually very relatable to what I did in my undergraduate dissertation. So my
Okay.
undergraduate dissertation was about exploring how can having more women on board improve the financial performance of a company. Based on my research, I definitely agree that it's a glass ceiling and how what I found that it's normally invisible. And it's also your point about the people around you, right? In my research also, people were afraid to join the board, like women, because they felt like there wasn't many in the board that were also female. I think that having a role model, be it in a
Yes.
board setting, be it an education setting, be it in a family setting, is so important because
Yeah.
that will shape how you think. And
Yes.
I think it's great that what you're doing now and the people similar to you, and hopefully what I do in the future is spread this awareness so that the perception of people can help change, things. Can you walk us through your first steps in getting involved in an NGO? Is there any way the listeners maybe could also get involved by volunteering?
The best way to get involved in the NGO scene is definitely, like you said, right? Volunteer in an organization that you really feel like you're connected to the mission. So I think depending, right? So let's just say you're into like wildlife, and we can volunteer with Zinagara, WWF. Another one called Roots and Shoots Malaysia as well, which is very famous.
I was actually a recipient of the Roots and Shoots Malaysia.
Nice.
So
That's great.
yeah, I did intern part of the program before I came to the UK. Mm.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. There are quite a big volunteering movement going on with them right now. And I think if you're into education, there's also a lot. Definitely get your hands dirty, go down to the ground, feel what it's like to be on the ground and see the challenges for yourself. And that gives you a lot of credibility when you want to start your own social enterprise or NGO, for example.
How do you identify funding opportunities and build trust with governments, partners, and private sector players?
Let's start with government first. I think the government, the Malaysian MO Ministry of Education, I would say at the ministerial level, they would say they're very open, correct? But then the individual district officers and state officials, right? Not everyone is as open as we would like it to be. Let's just put it that way. Some are more receptive than others. It's a bit difficult to penetrate if you don't really know the people inside. And they seem to prefer like locals to because they understand the culture, maybe understand the context. The way to build trust is really just keep on showing up. Like sometimes maybe the officers are very busy because a lot of people want to meet them, right? But let's say you shouldn't make it, but we still keep on reaching out. One day they will say yes, and eventually they'll be like, okay, like, this person looks like if I don't meet him or her, they're not gonna go away. Let's meet this person. And I think a lot of times you need like a trusted intermediary to introduce yourself to meet the, I guess, higher ranking the officer.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's the reality. If it's grants, right? I think not a lot of brands are very explicit about what they're going to fund and how they're going to fund it. But I think one that does it a bit better is actually the bigger funders like Yayasan Pasano. They have very clear criteria on what they are looking for, who they will fund, what sector, education specifically, what in education. I think they are quite specific. And they even have workshops every year. Like they have like a grant cycle before they open. They will ask like people who are interested, come and join the workshops, and they will brief you on what are the requirements. But just to lay out, I think the basic level is you need like 3 years of audited finances from an organization. There are like some other smaller funders that are you can reach out to.
What's your approach to measuring impact in the education space?
If you're interested in work in helping young girls access for higher education,
Mm.
Yayasan Tunku Abdul Rahman is actually one of the orgs that I think they're doing a very good job. In short, they're called YTAR, YTAR. First of all, I think their intention is to make sure these scholarships are accessible to people that typically wouldn't be considered in other scholarships. They are open to looking at non-first class holders because they know that a lot of kids from lower socioeconomic background, once they have less support, let's just say they have to work every day, right? It's very difficult for them to excel in studies. But they will instead look at the character and they invest in them. Their scholarship actually helped a lot of people. I think how they measure the impact, I'm not very sure. But very typically in general education programs, you need to have like a baseline and an end line. So then you can check at the beginning, let's just say this person's, let's just say teaching English. There's a baseline test that you have to do to see at the beginning what's their score. And then after you teach them something, what is the ending? What is the end line score? So if the difference is positive, that is perfect. On top of that, every workshop, right, you ask them questions to check whether they have learned what they taught them today. Every workshop you have to continuously check. Finally, I would also check even if you're interested in how girls assess higher education, check maybe before the workshop, how confident are they in applying for scholarships? And then after that, how confident are they in applying for scholarships? So then you ask the same question and compare the scores, you know?
In your opinion, what are some challenges students face when aiming to study overseas from a Malaysian context?
I think one huge thing is financial stuff. Like this is, let's be real, us being here, we are probably the selected less than 5% of Malaysians who can really make it to overseas. Finance is a big thing. Number two, I think it's also exposure. I honestly didn't know how to apply for this scholarship back then when I was in high school because I was never the first class student. I'm like the second or third class. And I never thought I could get this scholarship. But did you know how to apply?
Yes, it might be likely like what you say is the exposure because people around me were recommending. So if they've not told me, I wouldn't have known also.
So I think number one is a social circle. And number two is whether your results get hit. And I assume your results were probably pretty good. That's why you were in the sort of right circle. But then, honestly, as a Chinese, right, in Malaysia, I never thought with a 7 years I could get any scholarship. So I didn't actually bother applying. Because that's what my friends and seniors have been telling me. Unless you get straight A's, don't even think about it. Although it reflects some part of reality, but not a very good mindset to have. I should still just apply and see what happens.
I think it's a very difficult situation because it ties back to our whole theme about like the people around us. So let's say you have people around you that know certain things, then you also know. But at the same time, the mindset that if people are not very encouraging you on, to apply all this, you think that you are not capable of doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you think NGOs can better prepare girls from undeserved backgrounds for overseas education? So it can be like academically, emotionally, and culturally.
I'm not in this sector, but
Mm.
I really believe the phrase, although it's a bit cliche of it takes a village to raise a child. Like you cannot have only one person believe in that girl and then thinking they're going to succeed. We need a lot of people that actually believes in the individual, be it boy or girl or the child. You really need to have like maybe if it's an NGO, a strong group of individuals that reach out to these kids and really encourage them day in, day out to consider and just go beyond the secondary and go to tertiary education and even go overseas, right? So I think one is from a senior or like a adult to youth point of view. The second one is probably we have to group them with a lot of peers who have the same interests. I think youths, they strive or they also get affected a lot by from the interaction to the peers, right? So make sure they are grouped with someone that is very encouraging, very positive, and keep on encouraging each other. I think that would make a huge difference. Then hopefully they can stay in touch even when they go overseas, so that they can support each other throughout the way. Yeah, I realize if someone is without a support system, they cannot go really far. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I think really good points, Bernard, because it's not just senior to the young person, which is very
Yes.
helpful. It's
Yeah.
like the peers around you are the most influential. Because
Yes.
if you're
Especially when they
surrounded,
are teenagers, right?
yeah, teenager, your mind is still not matured enough, and you are so you are so
Yeah.
influenced by what your peers are doing. So it's
Yeah.
a great point you've made, because if you group similar mindset people together, it's very likely if they want to achieve and they're very driven,
Yeah.
the person, even if they are not as driven, they will feel like, hey, I need to step up my game, or hey, I feel so motivated, I want to also do good. And if you know if they are all able to go overseas, it's a good support system also, because it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
Mm.
even though they've made it overseas, like I don't know, look at I'm sure you understand, right? Me being here, being very far from family, we also need our support system. Encouraging girls or maybe youth to plan out the support system, to really identify, to know that no matter what happens, the world's not ending. They are support system that you can just reach out to, send a text, give a call, and they'll be there for you. I think that's very, very important. No matter how hard life gets, we wouldn't get beaten down.
Well said. And also something I've learned as a female is that, and this is something that maybe I can also introduce as part of my workshop program, is to give them the confidence that, hey, you have the support system in Malaysia, but that doesn't mean that you should be afraid to start new ones in the UK,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
maybe they are not equipped with the tools. So I
Yeah.
think that'd be good. Yeah.
And on that note, I feel like when I was younger back in Malaysia, I didn't know how to leverage on things like puppy chats and this LinkedIn connections. I feel like that was such a random thing that I would never do back home. But coming to the UK, everyone seems to do it. Like when you ask someone for a coffee, they're like, sure, let's do a coffee. Yeah, I really, maybe that's something that you have to get them to embrace. If I go back home, I might continue, I might still try. I don't know whether people will reject me because I feel like it's not as common, but who knows? Let's see.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to the culture and how it's commonly practiced. I can also introduce that, to normalize things in Malaysia. I think,
Yeah.
we are such a collective community. I think it just needs
Yeah.
to get one person start to do it. Hopefully, then it's like the village also will follow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's more
Mm.
common with like working professionals, but among the younger folks, like when I was in university, I don't remember
Yeah.
any of my friends doing it.
Now we have the experience, and as Malaysians, we go back, we can also bring that back and share and help the
Yeah.
overall community, the next generations. Are there programs or scholarships you often recommend or collaborate with for sending students abroad?
I've never collaborated with any
Mm.
scholarships or programs per se, but I have volunteered with Yayasan Tunggal Peraman, which is what I told you earlier. So what they do is, I absolutely love their system, right? They, let's just say they recruit 50 youths that they want to encourage them to pursue tertiary education. And that means local or overseas, right? So basically, they teach them how to upload their CV, resume, go for interviews, how to write a personal statement, all those things. And they would create a support system where we called what quote unquote seniors back then, right? They recruit a bunch of maybe another 50 seniors who have applied for scholarships, who have experience in working already, like at least 5 years ahead of these students, age age group wise. Then they will just pair them up together so that the mentor and mentee in this case, the mentor can coach them and guide them. I really recommend if you are into this helping people to assess tertiary education, yeah, something up to our mom is a good place to start. And we can continue work with them if you want.
What advice would you give to someone looking to start an education-focused NGO today, like me?
No, I think honestly, I feel like you're doing great. You are reaching out to people, speaking to people with a bit more experience and just get some tips and tricks and implementing. I think you're already on a great track. So I don't know. I'm not too worried for you. But if anyone else want to start, maybe just do what Patricia is doing. Keep on reaching out. Like, don't keep the idea in your head. You know? Idea in your head is like a seed without nutrients. It wouldn't grow. Right? When you go out to interact with people, it's like getting a bit of sunlight, getting a bit of water. Everyone that interact with enhances the idea and helps the seed to grow. So I think really go out to interact and make it to use. Like, if not, that idea will always just stay an idea. Speak to people, and I think through, like, for example, what you're doing, you probably connect to like-minded people. Even who knows, you could collaborate with some of them in the future as well. But definitely on top of what you're doing, for others as well, really get the hands dirty. I think that's what we need our youth to do more. Because I think too, a lot of us are very interested to help, but if we are not close to the ground, we sometimes we miss what the community really needs, you know? Sometimes we think that they need A, but actually they need A, B, C, D, E. And you wouldn't see the B, C, D, E if we are not close to the ground.
Yeah, well said. And also, like, you don't know the root cause to it if you
Yes.
are not on the
Yeah.
grounds. You don't know the real challenge underneath.
Yeah. And every community has a slightly different context and different needs, you know? Like if you want to help a kid in maybe Selangor or Pahang, it's quite different, you know, the needs and the culture.
And that's why, like, the more I delve deeper, the more I also come to be aware that Malaysia is one country, but different
Yeah.
districts. It's something that I will need to challenge myself because my dream is, to help Malaysia, but where do I start? And the next step would be drilling into seeing how it all differs between
Yeah, yeah.
states.
And I'm
Yes.
sure you can do it.
Thank you. Last but not least, what's your dream for education in Malaysia or Southeast Asia over the next 10 years?
I think I will go with Malaysia. I think Malaysia's education system is definitely closer to my heart. I really hope two things maybe. Number one, from the student level, I sincerely hope more thought will be put into preparing our students to understand themselves, their strengths, their interests, their weaknesses, even finding their identity. And that leads to finding out what they want to do in the future. Because I think based on a few studies, right, a lot of youths, they graduate secondary or even tertiary, not knowing what they want to do, which I think is a huge missed opportunity. In school, we can teach them a lot of hard skills, but if they don't have a strong why, right, they wouldn't go very far and they wouldn't be able to create something meaningful. So knowing the why is what I hope our education system can prepare our students better for. Maybe on the teachers bit, because I worked with teachers a lot in the past few years, I sincerely hope that they are a bunch of uh, people that work very, very hard. I hope more support can be given to them, more appreciation, recognition, so that they can continue to do the great work that they're doing. As a whole, I feel like I still go back to the thing about, it takes a village to raise a child. But sometimes I hear from some people who say, we all know that, but this is not enough people that want to be the village. So I really hope like more people like you, like want to be interested to be helping and find a way to contribute back. I think that's what we really need to propel the education forward.
That one's a tough one is how can we get more people like us that want to be on that same boat to
Just
go through that journey or go through that challenge. And not only that, to go through and stay committed despite everything. So hopefully with this podcast episode, we can spread that awareness and people who are like-minded also, we can all connect together. I just want to go back also on the point because I relate to it so much. I have chats with my friends now and we reflect back. We also feel something that could be improved is having courses not just book based, but like life skills, like you say, soft
yeah,
skills. I think after like high school or even after secondary primary school, it's like you are turning into adult, but we don't know what to expect. We don't know like adulting would be this. And of course it's, life, it teaches you and you personally you grow. But I think the support, it would be nice to have more courses like life skills or how to move abroad or just get to know yourself, like you were saying. That helps mentally and that would be very helpful in their journey, transitioning.
And if I can add, right, actually, for the hope for the students, I will not
Mm.
say it a different way. I think because the world is changing so fast, the important thing is actually teaching youth and even me, like teaching adults, right? How do we continuously learn and upskill our plans? If there's something that we don't know, how do we become good in it? Is what we need to teach students to master. That includes like going to the unknown, asking quote unquote stupid questions, experiment, fail and out. So we have to get ourselves very used to this in order to that. And I think if kids can just master this transferable skill of unlearning and relearning continuously, no matter where they go, they'll be fine. Teaching that is not like a subject, you know what I mean? It's like every day trying to help kids to be able to identify where they want to go and how they can get there continuously and train them to think like that.
Very good point. And also the adaptability point. I think it ties back also to resilience. That's what I can think.
Yes.
Resilience, because
Yes.
we can train the students, but at the end of the day, if failure comes, how do you get back up? I think
Yes.
people struggle with that. And
Yes.
then it all ties back to the self-doubt or the self-worth. I think what I've learned also through staying overseas, and hopefully I want to share this if I do build my own NGO, is going away from home is a difficult decision
Yep.
because especially as being a female, you feel maybe unsafe moving
Yep.
away from family. But at the same time, it has taught me resilience because when tough times come up, I was the only one here for me. And what I've learned in this journey is great. I made my own support system. I continue to connect with family. But the most important person is yourself. That is a resilience I've learned that no matter whatever happens, which part in the world I am, I have myself and I can get through this. I hope you had a great time. I
I love
really did.
this.
Yeah, I really did learn so much. And I think we both agree we kind of felt the time was ticking really fast. Just want to say thank you for taking your time, to have this session with me. Any closing points or comments you have before we say goodbye?
All the best to you and everything that you do, Patricia. I think you will do fantastic no matter where you go.
Thank you.
Keep in
Same to you
touch.
too. Keep in touch.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you to the listeners who joined in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give your like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.